It has just been a stunning turn of events already this morning in the U.S. election. Joe Biden has moved ahead of Donald Trump in the key states of Georgia and Pennsylvania. Here's a live look out of Philadelphia right now, where votes are still being processed. In Georgia, Biden is in front right now by 917 votes. Thousands of mail-in ballots are still outstanding. Exactly how many need to be counted should become clearer as the morning progresses. And just moments ago in Pennsylvania, the state where Joe Biden was born and raised, he jumped into the lead by 5,600 votes. And the standings you see on the bar below are numbers from the Associated Press, which show Joe Biden inching closer to that 270 electoral college votes needed to take the presidency. I'm joined now by CTV's Abby Kuhathasan. She's in Philadelphia right now. Abby, good morning to you. Again, a big change in the way this is heading this morning, with Joe Biden now taking the lead in not one, but two key states, including where you are in Pennsylvania. What's the latest you're hearing?
Absolutely. Just a few moments ago, we got word that, Joe Biden took that lead in Pennsylvania. They released the results of about some 20,000 votes. They're still counting here in Philadelphia and in some other parts of the state. But certainly this was what experts had said would happen, that once they started counting in those mail-in ballots from predominantly Democrat areas in this state, that Joe Biden would surge. And now we have seen him surpass Donald Trump. They still have, about 100,000 votes to count across the state. So, again, it's very, very close. But this lead will certainly be something that the Democrats look at positively, because 20 electoral votes. And as you mentioned, if he wins any of these states that are up in the air right now, he's the next president.
Have officials in Pennsylvania indicated how long it's going to take to count those remaining 100,000 votes?
Aside from the question of who's going to be the next president, that's the number one question, right? We heard from the Secretary of State of Pennsylvania last night, and she had actually said, we might actually have it by the end of the day. That didn't happen. Their main concern right now is accuracy and transparency. In that vein, in Philadelphia particularly, they have a live stream going. Anyone in the world can watch these ballots being counted. And a lot of that has to do with the rhetoric coming from the White House. The president says, there's fraud going on, that this election is absolutely rigged. If he loses, certainly there's no evidence of that. She reiterated that, the Secretary of State, saying that there's no evidence of widespread fraud at all. So certainly that's something that's top of mind. And the tensions that he's causing further amongst people here in Philadelphia, we saw outside the building where they're counting the votes. There were people that showed up and said, every vote must be counted, while others demanded that the vote count should be stopped because it's past election day. But of course, those mail-in ballots were submitted by American citizens living in America and abroad who have every right to have their voice heard. And that's what election officials have been saying. And they say they will count every vote.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit more about that, Abby, because this is the first time that mail-in voting has happened in this way in Pennsylvania. And a lot of people, particularly those who are supporting the president, seem to think that because it's taking so long, that indicates shenanigans, some sort of funny business. Explain why Pennsylvania is taking this long to count all of its votes.
This state does not have a tradition of mail-in votes like some of the Western states in the country. This is the first time they've allowed people to submit votes in this way without providing a valid reason, because they felt a valid reason for a lot of people is the COVID-19 pandemic. And so they've made it easier for a lot of people to vote. And Democrats, by largely, have voted this way to avoid having to stand in lines on election day or in early voting because they, were fearful of the pandemic. The president has been saying that mail-in ballots have a higher chance of being fraudulent. Election officials have said that's not true. They, look at these in a rigorous manner, just as they do when people vote in person. In fact, it's even more difficult to vote with mail-in ballots because of all the checks, and you may not get the opportunity to fix a mistake. So the president continues to say these kinds of things. His supporters believe him. We spoke to some of them yesterday outside of the Pennsylvania Convention Center where those votes were being counted. And, some of them were very upset that while Election Day is over, why are these votes being counted? Some of these votes were sent in before Election Day, and they were postmarked to Election Day, so they will be counted in Pennsylvania, which is allowed. But again, because of some of the comments the president is making, it's certainly muddying the waters.
Abby, thank you so much. We're going to check in with you later this morning. Appreciate that update.